Geoff, Raby is a former Australian ambassador to China. I asked him about the significance of Premier Lee's visit.
Well, for Australia-China relations, I think it's a return to basically a normal bilateral relationship. What has happened with this visit is that we have resumed annual high-level reciprocal exchanges with leaders of each country visiting the other. Now, the high-level reciprocal visits have been a feature of our bilateral relationship with China for 40 years. But after 2017, there has not been a visit. So this is the first one at this level for 7 years. So it is a very significant visit for that reason. For the region, I think it's another indication that China is wanting to engage the region and to continue to strengthen its relationships in all parts of the region.
So it's something of a return to normal service for China-Australia relations. You mentioned the regional picture. Can we speak a little bit more about that, with Premier Lee visiting Malaysia as well? What are your thoughts about China's broader strategy in strengthening its influence in the Asia-Pacific region through this kind of diplomacy that we're seeing?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, China is the dominant economic power in the region. Every country in the region, China is the major market and the major economic relationship. And that's very much true for Australia. China takes 32% of Australia's exports. That's astonishing when you think about it. And so what China is doing, I think, is putting in place the diplomatic and political architecture to reflect the fact of its very strong economic position in the region. And that's really to be expected. Clearly, this is done in the context of competition, geopolitical competition with the United States. But one point on that I'd make is that 7 years ago, when the last Chinese leader came to Australia, China accounted for only 60% of US GDP. 7 years later, it accounts for 3/4, 75%. So I think that really indicates the extent to which power is shifting to East Asia and predominantly to China. And China will need to have the diplomatic structures in place to reflect its dominant economic role.
And turning now to specific deals and policies, with China easing trade restrictions and rolling back tariffs for trade, what kind of opportunities do you expect might emerge from Premier Lee's visit to Australia and New Zealand?
I don't think we're going to see a big surge in new trade because many of the tariffs have been now removed. But again, we'll go back to conducting our trade on a normal basis under the terms of our free trade agreement. And in that case, commodities such as barley, timber, they will have a duty-free access to the Chinese market, as will Australian wine. And so hopefully from now on, the trade relationship will be governed by the arrangements that have been agreed to by both sides under the bilateral free trade agreement.